Well, the trailer got such a huge smile out of me, I had to check this thing out. Masters of the Universe Revolution. So, this is 5 episodes. It is at present unclear if there will be more later. There is set up at the very, very end for potential continuation, but there isn't a major overhanging issue. There were multiple at the end of the previous one, although the end of the previous one did sort of wrap up its immediate story. It also very much set up a, hey, there's more going on. While this kind of does that at the very end, this is also an ending that feels more like it could be a, and we'll walk away at that point. There may be more, there may not be. So this is only about half the length of Masters of the Universe Revelation. This threw me off because Revelation was released in 2 halves, and I kind of assumed Revolution was also going to have 2 halves, and that really doesn't appear to be the case, at least not from what I can find. If somebody can find me somewhere where somebody actually involved in the production, has definitively said this is being released in 2 halves, I couldn't find that. So I'm treating this as a full, complete thing. It is not without flaws. The big one being some stuff is really rushed. Not within the scenes, but oftentimes in terms of jumping things ahead. Honestly, what it feels like more than anything is that the creators were originally given, hey, we'll give you a movie to wrap up whatever else from the first season that you want to deal with. And then at some point in the process decided, actually, you know what? Let's break that up into 5 25-minute episodes. It's not quite as blatant about that as, say, the first season of Castlevania was, but it has that feel. It is condensing a lot in the time that it has. And some of it works. Some of it really feels like it needed a little bit more room to breathe. The stuff with Tila, it all makes sense. Like, there's no jumps that cause plot holes. But the stuff with Tila feels like it needed a little more breathing room, basically so we could get more into her as a character rather than focusing on the logistics of what she's up to, which the logistics of what she's up to are actually pretty cool, and I'll tell you before I get into spoilers. Similarly with Skeletor, what's going on with him, particularly what we find out about halfway through in terms of what's going on, it really feels like something that there is a piece of information that is jammed in real quickly. And it really feels like that should have been a little bit more of a peeling back of an onion. And instead it's just taking the chef knife and boom, there it is. Now you see what's inside. Again, it doesn't make the storylines and the plot points not work, but some of them do feel rushed. Not all of them. While I think the things the 2 main things that could have benefited from breathing room are Tila and Skeletor, most of the rest of the stuff either gets about as much as it needed, or even if it feels like, well, that could have had more, it doesn't feel quite rushed. Like what's going on with Adam and sort of his conflicts, I won't consider this a spoiler because it was in the trailers. Like the fact his father dies, then he has to figure out how he's going to rule. Is he going to rule as Adam? Is he going to rule as He-Man? Does he have to give up the power? Like, while there was certainly the mileage to do more with that and dedicate more time to it than they did, that doesn't feel rushed in the way that either Skeletor or Tila does. So there's stuff like that where it's like, you could have done more, but that works pretty well. And it has an energy to it. While it does feel rushed, it's not so much rushed in terms of, oh God, we're running out of time. It has a very propellant energy, which helps and kind of smooths over the rough patches a little bit. And the thing is, while I can point out flaws like that, and they're here, the simple fact is there were so many points of this where I had the biggest grin on my face and I was just thinking to myself, I love this so much. And I'm not sure that's going to hold up. I don't think it's a case necessarily of I love this piece of media, but more a case of I love the experience of watching this. Honestly, I feel like this is what Kevin Smith should be doing all the time. I haven't watched a Kevin Smith movie since Red State. I just have had no interest in it. But when I dip into his stuff, I feel like the things of his in general that hold up the best are things that he clearly has a lot of specific love for. like, Clerks was a cynical product, but you could tell there was a certain love of pop culture within that. Dogma, you could tell he was working through some very conflicted feelings about Catholicism in particular, but you could tell it was rooted in a desire to deal with this thing that's a massive part of his life, for better or worse. You read his stuff in Daredevil, you read some of his stuff writing Green Arrow, you can tell that there is a lot of love that he has for these works, and that really comes out in something like this. I don't know how much help he had writing these. I don't know how much he knows about He-Man in particular, but if he himself doesn't have a deep well of knowledge of He-Man, he at the very least knew to get people to help him who did. There are so many deep cut pulls in this, and every single one of them made me grin so massively. And the first, Revelation, the one that came before, that did that too, but this one, hit me in the sweet spot. I'm just going to start rambling now. It's going to be spoilers from here forward. So there's your warning. Here we go. So one of the things I really freaked out about when I saw the trailer was Gwildor. Gwildor is here. Not only is Gwildor here, and for those who don't know, he was created as sort of the sidekick character for the live-action film from the 80s, the one starring Dolph Lundgren. So Gwildor was created basically to replace Orko, because trying to realize Orko on the budget that movie had, which was not a lot, they couldn't do it. So they created Gwildor. So this clearly knows that, because they have Orko and Gwildor sparring and bantering, and they put the two together and they don't quite get along, and they seem to, despite the very obvious similarities that they point out, it's like, I don't like you. It's fun and it's sassy, but also not only is Gwildor here, it's not just that they are reappropriating Gwildor, they confirm that the movie is canon to this version of Masters of the Universe. They reference not only the cosmic key and stuff that went on there, Gwildor references a specific line, one of his early lines in that movie, which is, I don't like adventures. And they reference it in his intro here, and it just made me smile so big. And even characters who don't have lines, I just got the biggest grin just seeing them. Hordak's minions, Grizzlor shows up. There's the bug-eyed one, which I don't remember the name of, I never had. They had Leech, which took me a second to recognize because they redesigned him a bit. But as soon as I realized who he was, I was like, oh, that's so cool. Hordak, okay, first of all, Keith David, big win. What they do with him is interesting. And especially like in his first intro, he's like, I don't fight my own battles. He just has his minions take apart this random champion. And then like later on, when they do have him get into a fight, they include so much of the most ridiculous stuff that ever went on with Hordak, such as the fact that he used to literally turn into a rocket to escape back on She-Ra. They have him basically do that. Not 100% completely, but they have him more or less do that. They have the snort. If you didn't ever watch the original She-Ra, Hordak would occasionally snort as he talked or as he laughed. They give him the snort in this. And they don't draw attention to it, but it's there. And I was like, oh no, because that's a ridiculous detail that was there to make him slightly less threatening, because it was a kid show in the 80s and you didn't want your villains to actually be scary. And so they gave him a snort and just to make him a little bit more ridiculous. And he's not ridiculous here. He's threatening and intimidating and with a voice actor that really sells that gravitas, but they still give him the snort. And then the flashbacks with him and Keldor, I'll get to Keldor in a minute. With him and Keldor, when he's training Keldor, where they are, I had that playset. And it was designed for Hordak. I remember that playset. It's recreated here. And just seeing it. And again, no attention drawn to it. At no point is the show going, look at this. It's just putting it there. And if you recognize it and you're like me, you will get the biggest nostalgic thrill ever. And if you don't, you won't even realize that you missed a thing. Oh, God. I love the experience of watching this thing so much. All right, Keldor. So Keldor is something that got hinted at in the mini comics and never properly resolved. there was a hint of a connection between Keldor, Randor, Adam/He-Man's father's long-lost brother, and Skeletor. The obvious assumption that a lot of people made was that Keldor was Skeletor. That never got confirmed there. I know in the early 2000s reboot, they did have Keldor be Skeletor. I don't think that Keldor was Randor's brother, though. I can't remember if he was, but they definitely established that from the get-go. Here they do it, and it's a little bit of twist. That is the revelation that I think happens way too fast. Not necessarily for the audience, but for Skeletor himself. Basically it basically amounts to he gets hit in the head and remembers his past. It's slightly more complicated than that, but that's the gist of it, really. And I feel like there could have been a lot done with him, slowly realizing what it is that's going on. But it's pretty sudden, and it's just because they don't have the time. But Keldor just introducing him and tying up that story in the way that I think most people who my age and were reading the mini comics that came with figures back in the day, this is pretty much what we all assume. But it's just nice to see. It's nice to have it confirmed. The dragon. They not only do they have the dragon, is it Granomir? I think Granomir is how it's pronounced. Oh, I remember that dragon, especially from the mini comics. I remember that dragon, and they make him look a lot more dignified than he did in the mini comics. But they bring in John Delancey to voice this dragon. Just having him there, and putting Tila in the snake outfit, and just all this stuff, and it's just there. And they even though bringing in Hordak, they don't confirm She-Ra, and I figured they would not be able to because the rights are weird in terms of He-Man and She-Ra. Those rights are handled separately, but there are certain aspects that are kind of shared, Hordak being the big one. It's a little bit like back before Disney bought Fox, when Fox was its own thing, how Quicksilver showed up in both the X-Men and the Avengers, because Quicksilver is a mutant, so the rights to him do get tied up in getting the rights to the X-Men and the mutants, which Fox had. But the team he's most associated with was the Avengers, which was a team that the MCU was doing. So there was kind of a shared custody of that character. Hordak's kind of a similar thing. He was the overarching big bad, well, other than the Horde Prime, but that gets into other weird stuff. He was the primary big bad of She-Ra, but he was originally introduced as a He-Man Masters of the Universe character and figure. So he was part of the He-Man toy line, even though the character appeared in the She-Ra cartoon. So I wasn't surprised to see him turn up in both, but I did not expect any direct reference to She-Ra. That said, they have one shot in there that is Hordak getting ready to jump out of the window, and he looks like he's holding something in his arms. And if you know He-Man, you know what that is. That is a baby. That is baby Adora that he is kidnapping, but they don't show the kid. It's just the position of his arms, because you see him from the back. It's just the position of his arms, he's holding something. And if you know, you know. And there's so many if you know references, but the reason they work here, where so often in so much of media these days, it just doesn't, the reason it works is because the show never stops to look at the camera and go, if you know, you know. No, it just doesn't. And if you know, you know. And if you don't, it's not going to make you feel like you're missing out. It's not going to make you feel like, don't you wish you knew? No, you won't notice. I notice, though. And big freaking smile. Oh, I had a lot of fun with this. I don't know if it's something I'd be eager to rewatch. I never did rewatch Revelation. But it is nice that this deals with some very tangible fallout from that, like the fact that heaven got destroyed, and that has to be fixed now in this one. But overall, the experience of watching this was an absolute joy for me. Will it be for you? I don't know. Do you have nostalgia for Master of the Universe in particular? If so, yeah, good chance. If not, I don't know. I mean, it'll probably be a fun, actiony show for about 2.5 hours. A little bit less than that. That's about all I've got for you. But if that's what you want, this will give it to you. But if you've got that nostalgia connection and you haven't already watched it, please do. Oh, this was fun. Masters of the Universe Revolution. What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, subscribe. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here. So just come on back next time you need a break. And I'd like to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Zubin Lukfula, Goddess Elida, Oliver B., Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Ruth, Solitary Pictures, Ulrich Bogdan, Geek Filter, Linda Walters, Jen, Auntie808, Becky Sparks, Frenobulax the Poodle, Robin Powell, T-Love, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperol, Dave Hall, White Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Pal Barabajoggle, and Mara G. Yes, we do have new rats in the house. Whoa, you want it? We actually have two. This is Brownie. I couldn't get Sprite to come out, but say hi. Thanks for the support.